Lady, which one stood out to you the most? Belichick, Saban, or Carroll?
Hi, Michelle, my
Hi,
friend. Awesome to see you.
likewise.
I would say Carol.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say Pete. And who doesn't love and appreciate Pete's energy and what he's been able to do and dealing with the whole Russell Wilson situation and then bringing Gino in and the energy that did surprise me. With Coach Saban, not as much, but certainly it just sounds weird. Even if you kind of feel things are coming through the years, maybe you're like, wait, what? Is this really happening?
yeah,
And especially because look, he made it to the national semifinal game again.
yeah.
And I think the numbers are the same: 9 championship appearances, 6 championships, just like Bill Belichick, 9 appearances, 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
The Belichick one didn't surprise me really as much either. 3 of the last 4 seasons have not been, the Patriot way for sure, and obviously since Brady left. But it still is shocking and weird. And I think they're all 72 years old, aren't they?
They're
It's
all right around there, 71, 72, and it makes me picture this cruise ship, and all three of them are getting on the cruise ship, and each of them gets a glass of champagne, and they sail off into the sunset together, and they start just reflecting on great times.
the
Yeah,
stories would be
yeah,
amazing to be a fly on the wall.
no kidding, right? Yeah. So I'm with you on this because the Pete Carroll thing was really unexpected.
Hmm.
And so, like you said, it was shocking to hear that Nick Saban was retiring. But when you sat on it for a moment, you went, yeah, maybe he doesn't like this whole new college football landscape and he's done everything you could possibly do. So it makes sense. And same with Belichick. You sort of knew the Belichick thing was
Yeah.
brewing, right? You kind of knew it was going to go one way or the other. But the Pete Carroll thing was very out of the blue. What
Yeah.
do you make of the fact that he's staying in Seattle? Is it, he's almost like professor emeritus of the Seahawks?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think it obviously speaks to the relationship with ownership and the franchise as a whole and the impact that he's had. I love that, and I can see him always having his hands in something. And he's the kind of guy that I will say I believe will die there. Not in Seattle necessarily. I'm just saying in the game. He
Yeah.
would never leave. It's part of the fabric of his soul. I
Yeah.
feel the same way with Bill Belichick. Obviously, he's not staying in New England. I saw Teddy Bruschi, my dear friend Teddy Bruschi, who was on today, and he's like the first person I thought of and who I wanted to hear from. And he said, Bill always said he didn't want to coach into his 70s. And now here he is, 72. And I think obviously, still able to coach. That man can coach. Part
Hmm.
of me would love to see him sit and chill and take a break. But I think he's like Pete. I think he's going to probably have to just stay in it because that's what keeps them going. And he has a couple months to do whatever. Nick Saban, I think I can see him riding off into the sunset for
Yeah.
sure. Like you can't, why? Why would he go anywhere else? But then again, it is in his soul. I can see him maybe like Pete Carroll, like Coach K, who stays on after the legendary career, but still has influence, leadership, guidance. He is Alabama. And by the
Yeah.
way, my youngest daughter is choosing between a couple of schools. She's a senior in high school, and Alabama's at the top of her list. And I was like, no, coach, one more. I want to go to. I've never been to a game there, and I'm like,
Oh, it is
really?
unbelievable. It is unbelievable to go to a game
Oh,
in Tuscaloosa. It really is something. When I covered college football, we did a lot of SEC, and yeah, it's crazy. It's insane. I asked a head coach there a question once about his future, and I got death threats. So they are insane down there. They are passionate,
yes.
but
Roll
this may
Tide.
this may influence her decision, huh?
They should listen. I told her, all 3 of them, that I'm only paying for their education if they go south. No more of this snow stuff. And so, if she doesn't end up at Alabama, I will not be happy. But it's not
Yeah.
about me, is it, Michelle? It's not about
Well, it's not supposed to be, but I'm sort of with you. My son chose a cold weather climate, so what are we going to do? It is a really interesting time, and now we get to speculate about what happens next for each of them. Bill said he
yeah,
didn't want to coach into his 70s, but there's this opportunity still for him to break the all-time wins record, which maybe he wants, even with all the gaudy statistics.
yeah,
Maybe Belichick still wants that one. And so Atlanta, it was being mentioned this morning. And, I can't help think about the Chargers. They
yeah.
really need something, and they have a quarterback. And so that scenario seems really interesting to me. If Belichick were to go on? You have a favorite spot where you think he could land?
I mean, you always think when there's a departure of, a coach, there's no one like Belichick, but a big name, successful coach, or even a player or quarterback, you always say, okay, he was in the AFC. Let's go to the NFC. To me, Atlanta sounds right today, but who knows what'll happen at 6 o'clock today, right? And then you heard the conversations about Arthur Blank, and he always likes to go big or go home.
Yeah.
You could see that fit. It's so interesting because I think about Las Vegas and what happens out there. And there's talk with Tom Brady. What does Tom Brady want? Not Belichick, but what about Vrabel? Vrabel's not in Tennessee anymore. Those guys are boys from their Patriot days, right? Does he go out to the Raiders? What about Harbaugh? I mean, Harbaugh has to be part of all of these
Harbaugh
conversations.
has to be part of the
yes. There's 8 vacancies now.
Yeah.
He just won it all. I think it's going to be fascinating to see, but it's just so weird because of the legendary coaches in the NFL that have just stepped away or made changes in those organizations. So right now, the talk is Atlanta. Maybe he goes west, and Atlanta needs a quarterback too, right? So it's going to be fascinating. But part of me does. I want him to chill out, but I don't think he's able. 24 years. And by the way, I think I heard this stat too. In the 24 years that Bill Belichick was in New England, the rest of the NFL combined had 213 head coaches, while just one in New England. I mean, it's insane what he's done and to what level.
Yeah, it is. Harbaugh is the name that we were all talking about early in the week because you win the national championship. You get the sense that he's going to write his own ticket. Now, is it possible he says, you know what? NFL would be fun, but I'm dominating college football. Maybe I go to Alabama and I continue the tradition that is, the Crimson Tide. Is that far-fetched? Do we think, and maybe that's why they said, hey, Nick, if you're going to make a decision here, let's do it soon so we can go take a stab at Harbaugh? Or do you think it's NFL or bust for Jim?
That just doesn't feel right to me. I don't feel Jim Harbaugh in Tuscaloosa. I also feel like Jim Harbaugh, to your point, been there, done that, right? For a team that started off with so much adversity this season and just their last few years since 2020, when they've struggled so much and it didn't feel like Michigan football. I mean, he was on the hot seat for a minute, it felt like, right? I can't see that. And also I feel like, can't you see him going to a situation that he could be the savior? I mean, I think it was a tall task to go to your alma mater that was already, Michigan.
Yeah.
But maybe where he could go, uplift a franchise and, Atlanta Chargers, whatever it might be, where the bar isn't as high. If I'm any coach, I don't want to go to Tuscaloosa. I also don't want to go to New England. You know what I mean?
This is what makes Harbaugh different. He's not wired like the same. And I think he would not blink stepping into Belichick's shoes, stepping into Saban's shoes. He would not blink. He's kind of incapable of blinking. Nothing bothers that man.
True. He's so unique. Michelle, I know you're right. I covered Jim Harbaugh when he was Captain Comeback with the Colts, like 150 years ago. And so I wasn't around him nearly as much as you. And I was a young reporter then, but it was like, oh my gosh, he's a different cat. I saw him this year at the Masters. There was a dinner that we all were at. And I love seeing the other side of Jim Harbaugh, right? And then you see John Harbaugh in Baltimore, and the difference between those two. That Harbaugh family, they are so unique. And by the way, New England, I would be surprised right now if they didn't go with Gerard Mayo, who they gave that big extension to last offseason. And I think with Robert Kraft, the Patriot way matters, and I can't feel Jim Harbaugh in New England with the Kraft family. I don't know.
There are so many variables, and that's what makes this so much fun to discuss.
Yeah.
Because all of these things can come into play, and you don't know which one's going to be weighted heavier than the next. So
the drama.
The drama, the palace intrigue, it's all so good. Speaking of drama and intrigue, so Aaron Rodgers on his Tuesday Pat McAfee show says, I'm not going to be talking to you for a while. And after his appearance, McAfee says, Aaron's going to be done for this season. And McAfee, who will say everything that's on his mind,
yes,
says and I'm kind of relieved. I'm kind of glad, and I know a lot of people around me are glad. But to me, one of the things that I love about Aaron's appearances on McAfee is that you never know what you're going to hear. Now,
Yeah.
this whole thing with Kimmel is in the ABC ESPN family, so this thing was,
Yes.
you've got a unique perspective on all of this. What do you think's going on behind the scenes? How much influence does the Kimmel show have in saying to the folks at ESPN, knock it off? This is too far.
Yeah, I think that, gosh, it's such a unique situation in general because of the Disney ownership of ABC and ESPN. And Kimmel's obviously been there a very long time. I think the biggest picture is that Aaron doesn't fit that narrative of Disney, ESPN, ABC, and I know a little bit about what that feels like and what that's
Yeah.
like, and how you can kind of be attacked quietly, you know. So I'm sure that there, and I have not talked to anybody honestly, but I'm sure that there was encouragement, strong encouragement, maybe even more than that. Like, okay, we're good with this with Aaron, you know, and I'm sure Jimmy and his people made phone calls. You know, I just think it's, the irony is so thick that Jimmy Kimmel can dish it out like that for years about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Very personal things. And I know it's extra sensitive with Epstein. And I get that. And Aaron said that. He's like, I understand why there's sensitivity. But the depths to which Jimmy Kimmel has gone for years, and Aaron was pretty silent. And I just think, in my opinion, Jimmy overreacted, and the way it went down is just silly. I think I'm sad that Aaron's not going to be on for the next few weeks because I always enjoy his commentary. And it's funny because those first 2 hours are live on ESPN, and the third hour is ESPN Plus, and of course, always on Pat's YouTube channel. Aaron is very intentional with what he says when, and he says a lot of things to stir the pot during that ESPN window, like on purpose to poke the bear a little bit, whether it's his nonstop Fauci comments, whatever it is. I kind of like that. You know, this can go both ways, guys. You don't just throw darts at me and I sit here quietly. I know, by the way, no one likes to admit that Aaron was right about so many things, the vaccine, all those things. So I love it. And I'm sad. I'm disappointed, actually. Either you're in or you're out, you know?
Yeah, I feel that same way, Sage. It's disappointing that it kind of feels like they caved. You know, they caved a little bit. And I was surprised to hear McAfee say he was glad. He's a little relieved to not have to deal with the drama for a little while. Cause I thought Pat's no, he's no shrinking violet. I mean, and that's saying the least of it. He went after Norby Williamson and doubled and tripled down on his disdain for Norby Williamson. And that's I mean, and the reaction to that has been bizarre. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I was shocked. Not shocked at what Pat was saying about Norby. There's a difference, but shocked that Pat would go out there and name names, specifically Norby, and then the rat, and go on and on and on. I mean, I think it's unprecedented. When have you ever seen anybody, not just in sports media, news, do that? It's one thing to go on social media. It's another thing to do it while you're live on their platforms, you know?
And it wasn't just about the network. It was a name, a very specific, powerful, historic name at ESPN.
And that historic for sure. I mean, we all have many experiences with Norby. He was, named in my lawsuit. I mean, there's a lot there that I'm going to save for a glass of wine with Michele Tafoya somewhere else without a microphone. But for him then, Pat, on Monday to post the picture with Burke Magnus, who's number 2 in command at ESPN. I mean, that was deliberate, and that was a shot as he doubled and tripled down, as you said, between that, and then we won't even touch the Stephen A. Jason Whitlock drama. But I think it's fascinating when you look at a network and what they've dealt with in just the past 6 days. However, it's been silent from the executives. And I think whether it's this situation, any situation, anywhere, I mean, leadership is so important. And, I'm an Army kid. My dad's West Point. Like, leadership is everything. And it is lacking severely in all of these examples. And I think it's quite telling.
It is. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when NBA players started to discover that because they were pulling down major paychecks, sometimes more than their coach, very often more than their coaches, that they had more power, more
Yeah.
clout than the coaches actually did. And
Mhm.
that's what Pat McAfee reminds me of. He's making a cajillion dollars. He
Mhm.
ESPN needs him more than he needs ESPN. Would you agree with that?
1,000%. And that is why he went on the air on Friday and said what he said about Norby and went
Yeah.
on and on and on and called him a rat because he does not care. And he did it again on Monday at the national championship game. If anyone else, maybe Stephen A., if anyone else in the industry had done that, their butts would be off the air the
Yeah.
very next day. There would be statements released. Hell, I had to release statements for saying things about my own experience as a biracial woman on a separate platform on an off day, right? And again,
Yeah.
I'm not really comparing myself, but at the end of the day, you would never see anything like this anywhere. It is the beauty of having that power. What's the line? Obviously, there's different rules for different people. And then Stephen A follows up the Pat stuff, which is not, I don't think, a coincidence. That his timing with him going off and the language and everything else. Unfortunately, it has gotten away from sports. And I think at the end of the day, that's all we want. That's all I want. I'm a fan first. Michele, you're a fan first. And
Yeah.
the drama is embarrassing.
Yeah.
Even no matter what side you're on, I think it's embarrassing. I hope somebody can take control, but I doubt it.
It's better than anybody what's going on at ESPN when it becomes more about other things. I loved ESPN when it was all about sports. It
We
was
all did, yeah.
yeah, right? Yeah, and then it became this social organism. And I remember one day after the what people call the don't say gay bill in Florida, which is absurd,
Yeah.
but they called it that. The day after that passed, we had a women's college basketball game on in the house. And the announcers decided before or at halftime to talk about how they didn't agree with this rule in Florida, this new law. And I was like, could you just talk about the basketball game? That's why I have you on. I'm not, look, on your off day, you talk about whatever you want. I don't care. But when I'm watching a basketball game,
Yes.
I don't want to be lectured about stuff that we may not even agree on. So that it's and you're using this platform and the ESPN platform to suggest that you are in a place to tell me how to think or that your platform is so coveted that
Yeah.
what comes from you on it matters so much. It really, people are tired of it.
I will
I
say with that example though, with the
Yeah.
women's basketball, because yeah, I was there and watching as well. I know that the at least one of the actual announcers on the game that was being played didn't want to do it.
Ah,
And they were told to do that. And for the vast majority of all those people, they agreed with it and were probably fine with it. The moment of silence during a halftime, or was it the pregame? I don't remember.
oh,
That was an embarrassment. And I thought, what are we doing? We are injecting ourselves into this when it is not necessary. We have women, and ESPN's been incredible with women's basketball, and the ratings have been great. And why are you doing that? And oh, by the way, let's at least be factually correct. Have you read the bill? Are the
yeah,
words "don't say
exactly.
gay" in there? I mean, big
Nowhere.
picture, we're actually incorrect.
Right.
We, not us. They were with even insinuating that that's what it meant. But that's where your lack of journalism comes to bite you in the butt. And
Yeah.
that was really unfortunate because, and I said, I mean, I've had some people come up to me I've been gone for almost 5 months now, on airplanes everywhere, people saying, oh my gosh, what happened? Like, what, why? And it didn't, for a long time when this new president, Jimmy Pitaro, came in 4 or 5 years ago, he did an incredible job of really saying, guys, stop. They'd gotten out of hand after Trump's election, and the prior president,
Yeah.
John Skipper, allowed it and liked it because he was, anti-Trump, et cetera. But when
Yeah.
Jimmy came in, it was no more politics. He did an incredible job. I remember thanking him for that, and others did too. And then the pandemic hit and George Floyd hit, and it was over after
It
that.
was
And they have
over.
lost
Yeah.
control. And I hope that they can get it back, but that will take major decisions, probably beyond ESPN, up higher, Disney, Bob Iger. And
Yeah.
they've seen the cost. They felt the cost of what this going woke means to the bottom line at Disney and their films, et cetera. So I pray, because there's so many good people at ESPN, and they're still incredible at what they do.
Yeah.
When you keep it focused, there's nobody better.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Speaking of that whole family, you and I have dabbled in another part of that family, and that is The View on ABC. We both have our war wounds. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Whoopi Goldberg made a statement on The View that is so outlandish and so full of fear tactics. And I did probably 6 shows with Whoopi, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to decide, Sage, does she really believe this, or is she just trying to scare the hell out of her viewers so they will vote the way she wants them to vote? For people who don't know what she said, we're going to play the soundbite for you,
Good.
and then Sage and I will talk about it on the other side. Here's Whoopi Goldberg yesterday on The View.
I'm here to say it's ours to lose. It is this country. This is what it's all about. Either you want it to work forward thinking, you want everybody to have the ability to say how they feel, what they want to move forward, or you don't. Or you want somebody who says, I'm going to be on day one, I'm going to be a dictator. Who says it to you, tells you, I'm going to put you people away. I'm going to take all the journalists, I'm going to take all the gay folks, I'm going to move you all around and disappear you. If that's the country you want, you know who to vote for. If that's not the country you want, you have to make a decision.
Okay, and you kind of heard in the background, I think it was Joy Behar saying it. That's what the MAGA people want. First of all, divisive as hell. Secondly,
Yeah.
and I'm not a Trump apologist. This whole he's going to be a dictator from day one. Again, talk about taking stuff out of context. Again, not an apologist. Actually, wish he wasn't running. But what Trump said was, I will be a dictator just on day one when I shut down the border and start
Yes.
drilling for oil. That's not a dictator from day one, like, here I come. But to suggest that he's going to disappear gay people and journalists, say, what the hell? How do people actually believe Whoopi Goldberg?
The sad thing is that I do believe Whoopi believes everything she is saying. And
Mhm.
I really enjoyed sitting next to her. It was quite an honor. Back at the last time I did it was like 2014. And she was always great to me. I hope she was great to you as well.
Yeah.
And I think she is Whoopi. She doesn't have to pander to anybody. She's saying what she believes. And that is the scary part. But people like that hear what they want to hear. And oh, by the way, they're not journalists. That's for sure. So like they're on a different level. I think
Yeah.
they also don't want to have a conversation.
Mm-mm.
And that's the saddest thing about that show, because the potential, how it used to be 25 years ago, is so good,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when I fell in love with it. And it was actually a dream of mine. And now it's like, not that they would ever want me, but even 8-10 years ago, hell no.
Yeah.
She believes it. They believe it. And they choose to, right? Because to me, please be a dictator on day one. Please fix what's happening on the border. Please start drilling. Please help what the current president has done to do his best, it feels like, to ruin the country. You talk about a dictatorship, you talk about communism and socialism, and just the border alone, and just what we're seeing in New York City, and kids are being kicked out of their schools to house illegals, and we don't need an ID to vote as an illegal. But I mean, I am shocked by where we are. I'm encouraged also, though, and because I'm always glass half full, even if I shouldn't be. But I know so many people who are more on the left who are like, this is insane and we have to stop.
Yeah.
So to me, unfortunately, maybe I feel like Trump is one of the few that doesn't give a crap and will do what he believes is best for this country.
Right.
Will it actually come to fruition? The one thing I don't think we're talking about enough, Michelle, is why do we ever believe that there'll ever again be fair voting in this country based on what has happened the last couple of elections? I think they're making it very clear that they'll do anything it takes to keep him out.
Mhm.
And then from there, why would we believe that anything would be fair? That's the most heartbreaking thing. But when they spew that stuff on national TV, again, it's inexcusable. But that's why we have the power to do what? To not watch, not click.
Right.
And that's what I choose to do.
Right. It's that's a good choice. That's always a good choice. It's that though, it's that, do I want to drive? My husband put it this way. Do I want to drive down the freeway in a convertible in the sunshine and ignore all the stuff that's going on and be blissfully ignorant and then drive off a cliff? Or do I want to pay attention and absorb some of the disgust that comes with having to pay attention in order to be an educated participant in the whole process? And I choose the latter,
Yeah.
but that's not to say that The View is the place to go get your real
No.
sink your teeth
They're
into
insane.
information.
It's
They
it's
are, yeah.
insane. It's not even fun to go on because they want
No.
you to come on and you come to New York, and Michelle, you did an incredible job. And then they talk all over you and go to break and cancel you. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. It's not even
Mhm.
fun. Like, this is
No.
fun. It's not
Yeah.
even fun.
This is fun. This is where you come for the fun. You come to OutKick, by gosh. This is where you share laughs and you can say whatever the hell you want. The other thing that's rich about what she said, and then we can change the subject, is when she said, do you want to be able to express yourself freely? How many people have been canceled or have been told to shut up or have been, you know, even just this administration hasn't
Yeah.
been clear with us at all. This whole thing with Lloyd Austin the last week and a half has been not an embarrassment, but a disgrace, a dereliction of duty. And it makes me I've been concerned for a long time about who is really in charge in that place. And I'm not sure who it is.
Well, it's so funny too, because I think all of the, the CNNs of the world and probably the View during the Trump administration had really high ratings. Because why? Because they got to rip on him and crush him every single day. They weren't silenced at all.
Yeah.
They're
Yes.
the ones
Yes.
that are against Elon Musk, who is, I believe, one of the best things to happen in social media and beyond, because he truly is a free speech guy. I think a lot of
Yeah.
us don't agree with everything he says,
Right.
but he has seen this and felt this now, and he's making sure that voices aren't silenced.
Yeah.
They were at their quote unquote best, and that's relatively speaking for sure, when they could sit there and crush Donald Trump for 4 straight years. So I don't know what she's talking about. What, he's gonna not let us talk? What?
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
It gives
I
you
know.
fodder, which is what you crave.
Exactly. I don't know what they'll ever do when he's off the scene. They'll find a way. But all right, last thing for you. And you and I both know Riley Gaines, and she is synonymous with this movement to save and protect fairness in women's sports. So you've seen this now. It's January 14th that is this deadline for the American Climbing Association, or rock
Which I didn't
climbing,
know
whatever.
it existed. So
I
I've
didn't
learned
either.
something.
I didn't either, but it's come out of obscurity now. They were going to allow transgender women, meaning again, for people who get confused, people born biologically as men now identify as women, to compete
Yeah.
against women. This is so absurd to me. We both know why, but back in November 30th, they announced, you know what, we're going to put that on hold. We're going to open it up to public comment. And so Riley's been encouraging this public comment. But this whole idea, Sage, I can't believe that it's happened within one lifetime from the time you and I
Yeah.
were born to now, when we're just in our prime, that women's sports is being thus threatened. What in
Yeah.
the hell is going on?
I guess I'm still in shock that the conversation has continued to this point. It's been about a year and a half, I think, since the Leah Thomas story really blew up. And I
Yeah.
remember making a very not strategic, but I knew it was a tough decision to go public and support Riley Gaines, because of course I was still at ESPN, and then later told, careful, watch what you say, you don't want to offend anybody. I'm like, oh, here we go. So even to this point, I'm surprised that we're still talking about this, because it's not even an opinion. These are facts. This is science. And yes, I don't know much about climbing, but I do know physically that upper body strength that men have that we don't have as much of, never have and never will, probably is an advantage in the sport of climbing. It is shocking and just confusing to, hear what they said back in November and okay, we're going to, put it on hold, and now say, okay, go ahead. I think I read that they said it's it would almost be easier because of the administrative part of it to just leave it as is and go ahead and compete as you identify. I don't know if that's the case, administrative stuff and paper pushing, maybe not admit that. I don't know, lie, something. But if that's going to be your reason for saying, just go ahead. If, oh, you're a guy today, great.
Yeah.
It's disappointing. And again, to me, it goes back to leadership.
Yeah.
People who are in those positions who are afraid to lead, afraid to tick off, fill in the blank. When deep down, I truly believe we all know, all those people know the truth. That's what's most disappointing. So thank goodness for Riley Gaines, who continues to be such an incredible voice, by the way, at 24 years old.
I know.
She's making a difference in the world. I know you've been on her show. I was on her show recently, and I'm so in awe of her. And where I was at 24, no. So I want to continue that fight with her, no matter the sport. I think she's part of conversations with chess too, as well. That might be different. I don't know how much physical acumen is necessary to win that. But at the end of the day, the why is what I'm going to continue to ask. Why? And in my opinion, maybe it's a conversation for another day, I do believe that there's some evil rooted in all of this. It goes much deeper than people just getting weird all of a sudden. And that's what I think we need to look at. And oh, by the way, people like you and me and Samantha Ponder, she's one of the few anywhere as far as women in that sports landscape who have chosen to stand up, who have larger national platforms. I am still beyond disappointed to see all of our peers sit in silence.
I know.
And they know. And that includes men who have daughters who are high school age, college athletes, playing volleyball, playing soccer, men that we know and work with who are silent. And I know damn well that if a man, a biological man, a transgender woman, whatever, were to come on that volleyball court against my daughter, guess what? I'll probably go to jail because I'm going to go take him out of the knees. It's not happening. So for these men to be silent as well, it's a disgrace. And I think that we are just overlooking our power, that if we all came together to continue to support women's sports, as we all have for all these years, as ESPN did, and we celebrate it.
Yeah.
Everybody's silent. Come together. Why are we so afraid? We can win. We can beat this. So I just am saddened mostly by that. But hey, I got a big mouth at this point. You do too.
Yeah.
And now I'm not going to back down.
No. And my hope is that people like you and Riley and myself and anyone else who'd like to join this, Benjamin Watson, though, former tight end in the NFL, you know well, has been vocal on this. And I'm glad to see it. I'd like to see more men to stand up for women's sports. And I think we'll see that gradually. But
David Pollock, who was laid off right before the season, David Pollock has really been out there loud about it since he left.
You're right.
You're right. And that's been
we had him on the show the other day. Yes.
Oh, you did. Yeah. He's the best.
He is a terrific guy. And yes, we need this. And I'm with you. My husband and I have discussed with our 15-year-old daughter, what would we do if, and it's, are you going to be that parent? And I said to him, yeah, honey, I probably am going to be that parent that's really vocal about this because it's just wrong. It's unfair. And here we are talking about all the people who pontificate about diversity, equity, and inclusion are now taking it out on women in a way, because they are minimizing what it means to be female. I mean, the biological, all the aspects of it.
Real quick, Michelle, my youngest daughter, the senior in high school, she came home and she's always pretty quiet. She has her very strong opinions and very different from mine. And I love that. But she's like, Mom, I had a choice for this paper I want to write at the topic. And she chose this topic and women in transgender sport. And I thought, good on you, babe, because listen, where do we live? Connecticut. So I am so proud of her, and she's going to do it in a classy way. Because, she's my girl, and fact-based and about girls and supporting her teammates. I'm so proud of her because she has a lot more cojones than a lot of the grown-ass women and men that we work with. And maybe that's who we can depend on, is part of that younger generation that gets a bad rap. There's a lot of good, strong kids who just want to have the conversation and do it professionally and with kindness, but facts. Go girl.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, give her my best. Tell her
I
she has
will.
my support as she plows ahead with that project. This stuff matters.
Yeah.
We do need to instill the courage really in our kids to stand up for what they know is right.
Is right.
And as you've done always, Sage, it's always great to visit with you. Promise me that glass of wine because I want some more details. I do.
Bottle.
A
Bottle.
bottle. You
Couple of
got it.
them.
She is Sage Steele.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us, girl.
Good to see
And
you.
we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.